all, I hope you are having a fabulous day. My name is Reggie and today I'll be sharing with you my favorite books of 2016. These videos are the most exciting of the year. I'm pretty sure a majority of this list won't come as any surprise to those of you who have been watching my videos for a bit, because all of these books are books I talk about a lot and rave about on my channel. But let's just get into it. I'm going to be sharing with you my top 10 books of 2016, but I do have two honorable mentions that I just want to mention really quickly first. Both of these books I really thought were going to make it onto my top 10 list when I read them, and I just read so many great books this year that they just didn't happen to make it. The first honorable mention I have is Furiously Happy by Jenny Lawson. This is a memoir written and, if you listen to the audiobook, narrated by Jenny Lawson. It is about her own personal struggles with mental illness, and it's just very poignant and beautiful and funny. And I love Jenny Lawson's tone and voice, and I've come to love her as a person. I didn't know her before this. She runs a blog, and I am pretty much obsessed with her as a person now. She's amazing. And the second honorable mention is Every Last Word by Tamara Ireland Stone. This is about a girl named Sam who is friends with the popular girls and is secretly hiding that she has OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, especially emphasis on the compulsions. And it's a very interesting look at her situation and a very good story about unhealthy friendships and keeping secrets. And it has a lot of good messages about mental illness. I do have a review of this book on my channel, so I will link that in the description bar below. I have a review for almost all of these books on this list, so those will be down in the description bar. Now, I read 107 books this year, so narrowing it down to my favorite 10 was a bit of a challenge, and then ranking them was even harder. But I have done it for you today, so let's start at number 10. Number 10 is It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. I read this recently and I was floored by Colleen Hoover. I didn't think I would read another Colleen Hoover book after I read Ugly Love, and I'm nervous that her other books won't live up to this even in the future, but this book fixed every issue I've ever had with Colleen Hoover. Colleen Hoover is a romance new adult author, and her characters often lack agency or character growth and development. Oftentimes the relationships are just in general unhealthy, and these characters and these story plots don't really develop into anything more than this romance that oftentimes is unhealthy. This book delved into a real topic, a real issue. It was an important issue, and it was beautifully executed. It had character progression and agency. There were so many things about this book that were different than the things that Colleen Hoover normally does, and I just really was excited to see her growth as an author. I definitely think this is her best and most important work to date. I do have a spoiler-free review and a spoilery discussion. I will link that in the description. Number 9 is My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You She's Sorry by Frederick Bachman. I'm really surprised this isn't higher on the list. I was sent this book from the publisher Aria Books, and it is just so perfect. This is a book that found me at the right time in my life. It found me right after my grandfather passed away, and this is the story of a young girl who loses her grandmother. Our main character, Liza, is 7, so obviously it's a very different situation going on, but it was still a story that really impacted me and helped me, and I just really connected with it. The story really develops the grieving process and the process of being really close to a grandparent, and it talks a lot about bullying and escapism and storytelling and learning about other people you don't know much about and not judging them and getting to know them, and it just had a lot of beautiful messages, beautiful imagery, wonderful writing. Like a River Glorious by Ray Carson. I fell head over heels in love with Ray Carson this year, and I actually got to meet her, which was a mind-blowing experience. She is undoubtedly my favorite author right now, and this is a sequel to Walk on Earth, A Stranger. This is the first 2 books in the Gold Seer trilogy. I read both of them this year. Like a River Glorious was just phenomenal though. This series follows our main character, Leah Westfall, who is living in the South when a tragedy strikes and she has to flee west. She is living in America during the gold rush and she heads to California. She disguises herself as a guy because she is on the run. She also has the ability to sense gold, which you can imagine is very valuable and the reason she is on the run. And this book picks up after Leah and her group have made it to California and kind of what happens once they're there. Ray Carson does not hold back in this book, and that's one of my favorite things about Ray Carson in general. This book is not always the easiest to read, but it is so important. Come Coming in at number 7 is Frostbite by Rochelle Mead. This is the second book in the Vampire Academy series. I've read books 1 through 5 this year. I'm going to be reading book 6 and finishing off the series this month, but my goodness, this series blew me away. It was so much more than I thought it was going to be. The Vampire Academy series follows our protagonist, Rose Hathaway, as she is going to school to become a protector of the friendly Roy vampires. Rose Hathaway is so badass, and this story takes such unique and fun twists and turns. It is one of those books you just consume so quickly, and I honestly did not expect to like these books as much as I did, but book 2 in the series was definitely my favorite. Number 6 is one that I really thought would be a lot higher on the list, but sadly it's not, and that is Passenger by Alexandra Bracken. First of all, this book is freaking gorgeous. Look at it. Look at it. Wayfarer comes out really soon. It might already be out by the time this video goes up. I'm really excited to read it. That is the sequel, by the way. But Passenger follows our main character, Etta Spencer, who is a prodigy violinist. And through the course of the story, Etta discovers she's actually part of an ancient time-traveling family and gets sucked into a time-traveling adventure through all kinds of time periods and all different locations, and it is kind of a treasure map and a scavenger hunt trying to figure out pieces of a clue to save people that are important to her and to fix and right wrongs and run away from a bad guy. It's just great. But what I love about this book so much is Alexandra Bracken's writing style. She writes so vividly and really paints such a beautiful picture of those places you're going to, these places that we will never see because they're in different time periods. And I absolutely love the description and the imagery that Alexandra puts into the story, and it does make it a slower paced story, but I think it's well worth that adjustment because it enriches the entire story so much. And I do have a review on this book, so again, I'll link that down below. And now we're into my top 5 books of the year. Coming in at number 5 is The Last Lecture by Randy Pausch. This is a nonfiction book written by Randy Pausch, who was diagnosed with terminal cancer. He was a professor at Carnegie Mellon, and he gave a lecture before his departure from the university all about living your life to the fullest and imagination, all sorts of wonderful, enriching advice, and it's just so beautiful. And he expanded that lecture into a book, which is the book I'm talking about today, and I've watched lecture many a times in the past, but I finally read the book and it was just so beautiful and so touching. And I do have a review of this one, so feel free to check it out. Coming in at number 4 is The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. One of my favorite books of all time. I love this series. This is The Raven Cycle. Maggie Stiefvater is just the most hilarious person, first of all. She's great. I got to meet her this year. She's also the most wonderful atmospheric writer. She writes the best characters, the best relationships, and not just romantic relationships, but like friendships and relationship dynamics between a child and a parent. The Raven Boys is about our main character, Blue. Blue has been told all her life by psychics in her family and psychics outside of her family that if she kisses her true love, that person will die. And thus, Blue kind of stays away from people. She's also very different and grew up in a house of psychics. During the course of the story, Blue does befriend a group of boys called the Raven Boys who go to a private school. Together, they go on this really bizarre adventure following ley lines to try to find a sleeping Welsh king. It sounds ridiculous, and it is, but it's so beautiful. You read the story, though, not for that really bizarre story, but for the characters, for the atmosphere, for the writing of Maggie Stiefvater. Coming in at number 3 is Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli. This is amazing. But Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda is about Simon. Simon is in high school and he is gay, but he has not come out to anyone other than a secret and anonymous pen pal named Blue. Near the beginning of the book, Simon leaves his email open. A classmate sees his emails to Blue and discovers what's going on and ends up blackmailing him. So the course of the story is really just Simon's process of deciding if he's gonna come out. Should he? Is he gonna accept the blackmail? What's he gonna do? And the topic seems really dark, like a kid being blackmailed about coming out, but it's actually so charming and wonderful and joyous and happy, and it's just a book that brings a smile to my face. Coming in at number 2 is The Crown of Embers by Ray Carson. This is the second book in the Fire and Thorns trilogy. I've mentioned how much I love Ray Carson. This is a story about a girl named Alyssa who is the bearer of a godstone, basically meaning once in every generation or once in every 100 years, I don't quite remember, a person is bestowed a godstone and they're basically destined to do something great and important and impactful. And Alyssa just feels very uncomfortable with this because she is overweight and very self-conscious. The story has an amazing amount of character growth and wonderful journeys and just beautiful storytelling and wonderful, wonderful writing. It also has very diverse characters, and my favorite OTPs in the entire world forms in this book, so that's great. Anyways, I have a series review of this series, so I'll link that down below, but it's a good one. And coming in at number 1 is I'll Meet You There by Heather Demetrius. This book I read recently. I read it in November. This is a contemporary romance that follows our main character, Skylar. She is a small town girl living in Central California, and she has aspirations of leaving her small town. During the summer, after she has graduated from high school, she is working at a motel and is reacquainted with an old acquaintance named Josh, and of course, a romance balloons. But what's so wonderful about the story is not the romance, but is the intensely important topics that Heather weaves in the story. Topics such as alcohol abuse, children growing up too fast, PTSD, war trauma and stigma, survivor's guilt, poverty. It's just chock full of super important topics. She tackles everything she puts in this book super respectfully. She doesn't villainize people for making mistakes. She doesn't glamorize those mistakes either. It's just so well done, so respectfully done, and I just love this book so much. So those are my favorite books I've read this year. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already, and leave a comment down below and let me know what your favorite book you read this year is, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!